Thursday, February 24th, we're giving you a lockout update for the 982nd time. God, this is getting tiresome, but oh well. We are also going to tell you who's holding us up. We're going to give you a quick bio blast on the 30 owners in Major League Baseball, so we can blame them, and they make enough money for us to make fun of them. I've also got some niche over-unders, but first, Peter Apple, hi.
Hey. I agree. 983rd time I think we're at right now. And I get somewhat tired of it. And by somewhat, I mean all the way. But I am kind of excited to lift the curtain on who's holding us up here, because that makes the conversation a little bit more fun, because you get to hear how many billions are they making? How much money have they made since they bought the team? Spoiler alert, it's a lot of freaking money. And we're going to talk about it.
It's a ton of money, and they stink because they are penny pinching relative to what they have. And we're looking at some of the smaller market guys that, might have a net worth of $400 million. And, like relatively speaking, that's not a lot of money. But if we're talking about the grand scheme, Jesus, dude, just like pay these minor leaguers. Come on, you have $400 million.
And if we're talking about the American League, there's one owner with a net worth less than $1 billion. There's one.
There's two in the National League, I want to say, maybe three. I've got the NL, you've got the AL. I've got those three niche over-unders. I'm coming to you from the Delta Hotel in Kalamazoo, Michigan. And that's my life update right now. Oh, no, I've got another life update. I don't know why I keep going to First Take thinking that I'm going to see quality content.
Yeah, I don't know why you do that either. I stopped watching First Take, like halfway into Max Kellerman, 2018. It's unwatchable. It's just yelling. And I love them individually. Like I know not a lot of people are, but I'm a big fan of Chris Russo, and I'm a big fan of Stephen A. But I can't watch it. It's not sports. It's pop culture with they're just using names of quarterbacks to tell a story.
Yeah. So here's the thing about First Take. Like I haven't voluntarily turned it on in several years. I'm with you. But whenever I'm on the bus, they have ESPN on at like full volume. So I was on the bus going to shoot around this morning, and I had to sit there for First Take. And it was Stephen A. Smith and Jay Williams, who individually I both really respect both of them.
Individually, they're great. But
yeah,
it's
they're great. But they're sitting here yelling at each other about the NBA Mount Rushmore. Who's on the Mount Rushmore in the NBA? And I'm like,
how many times have they done that?
Yeah, how many times have I seen a certain iteration of this exact conversation? That's just
we're in a lockout, and we're at least, giving you something new on the baseball sphere every single day, or at least we're trying our best. There's probably some points that, we go over multiple times to kind of emphasize them. But imagine if we just had Mike Trout versus Juan Soto 4 days a week for 2 hours.
Right. Well, one day we could do OBP, and then the other day we could do slugging. And then the third day we could do OPS is kind of like a compilation of the both of them. It was super crappy. And then I'm getting off the bus and I hear them throw to break. And they were talking about Stephen A's radical change that he has in mind for the NBA dunk contest. And he said, and Molly Karam was like throwing a break and said, what does Stephen A have in store to change America's pastime? In reference to the dunk contest. It's like,
the worst of all time. I'm a Knicks fan. And it was great to see Obi Toppin win it. But I mean, what are we talking about? Nation's pastime. Are you talking about which event drives the highest ratings for ESPN? And if it is the dunk contest driving those high ratings, it isn't. No way. Just like no way it is.
Well, but it's not on ESPN. It's on TNT. So like, why are you committing so much time to the dunk contest when it just doesn't deserve time if it's not on your air? But that's beside the point. We can talk about baseball now. Owners have met in the parking lot. Players have met in the parking lot. I've seen Max Scherzer gesturing. They're meeting again today for the fourth time this week. Things are starting to pick up. Were you expecting that they would pick up quicker than they are?
I was expecting them to pick up as much as they are currently. I expected each day for them to make at least momentum towards somewhat of a deal. And I'd say, what yard line do you think they're at when it comes to a deal. I would say right now they're at the 40-yard line, the opposite 40, and they got 60 yards to go.
Yeah, I'd say they're at like the 35. Maybe they got backed up with a false start penalty. It's 1st and 15 at their own 35.
Holding, legit holding.
Yeah, you could do. How about delay of game?
I think holding. Because
I
it's the worst penalty. And when I heard that they're in different rooms talking to themselves, game planning for a meeting that they had 2 months to game plan for, holding.
Yeah, see, that's why I think delay of game. It's like delay of game on the first play of the drive. Like you had the entire media timeout to concoct something, and you just can't get the snap off in 40 seconds.
Pass interference, maybe.
No, because that would advance the ball. The ball is not being advanced; it's being pulled back right now. But yeah, I think they are getting away from the technicalities. Yeah, getting away from the technicalities. You know, I think this is pretty on par with what I was thinking too. I don't want anybody to think that Friday at 3:00 you're going to see breaking Major League Baseball has reached a deal with the players union, because that I hate to be Debbie Downer. You know, Jeff Passan already tweeted out the Debbie Downer gift. Like, that's just not going to happen. I think we're going to have the conversations again next week, and then maybe first week of March we're going to get something, but it's not going to come out of nowhere. We're going to know like 3 days in advance they're zeroing in. Let's get there. The competitive.
I do think that they're going to zero in this week. I'm not saying we're going to come to a deal on Friday, but I think it's maybe a little bit too much of a Debbie Downer coming from you being like, we're never reaching a deal Friday. No, like we don't know. We don't know for sure. We are speculating. You don't know for sure. It could come to at least closer of some sort of agreement. Not no way. And then maybe we'll play game June 2023. Maybe not. I don't care. That's how you sound.
You make me sound like an asshole.
I just want to watch baseball. I don't want my freaking boy just across the mic being like, just don't get excited. This sucks. I hate it. You know what? Maybe they'll come to a closer of an agreement by Friday, and then it'll take another week, maybe 2 weeks. Then we'll get a deal done. That's how I'm feeling. I'm ready for 162.
Would you mind shipping me some of your optimism?
Yes.
Breathe into a water bottle and send it via FedEx. Yeah, just like anything. Yeah, like here's the thing. I don't want people to think that I'm like, oh, we're not playing, because they're gonna play. They're gonna play probably. I set the number at 140 games. I think Major League Baseball plays 140 games this year. I would love to think they play 162, but I haven't thought they're going to play 162. I would like for that number to be 155. I would like for that number to be worst case scenario 150. I just don't know if we're going to get to that point. I think once they realize that the start of the season is not happening on April 1st, they're going to kick their ass into high gear. And that's coming soon. It's not coming this week, but it might come end of next week when they start to say, shit, we got to get this done like in the next 5 days for us to really save our ass. And I hope they do. And when they're ready to do it, let's do it. But we've got a ton of college baseball. We've got a ton of minor league baseball to watch, and it'll be good. But let's talk about the villains in this story. But
before we do that, let's plug where they can go listen to those different outlets. So we have our new fantasy baseball podcast / gambling podcast, Not Gambling Advice, which is one of our podcasts you can find on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts. You can also check us out on YouTube. Also, we have the Call Up hosted by Arm Layton. That's the MLB Prospects pod. He's helping you get the great cards, sponsored by eBay. Get those cards on eBay. He had 2 really good ones, but to find those, you got to go listen to that podcast. Also, Boys of Spring, our new college baseball podcast. We'll put the link in the description of this episode. College baseball hosted by Pete Flaherty, Ryan Miller, and Ben Bellotti. It's going to be a great college baseball podcast that keeps you updated on college baseball throughout the season. And then, of course, the Just Baseball show, where the boys are just talking shop. I'm trying to make sure Jack doesn't, kill my vibe too much. And now let's talk about the owners who are holding all of this up.
Yeah, I am absolutely brutal to Peter's mental health, but let's talk about it. We're going to alternate here. So I'm going to start in the NL East. You can start in the AL East. I'll give you my quick blurb, and then you can follow with a blurb on those guys. And, it's not like we can really have dialogue about these guys, about their venture capital fund. So I'm just going to give you
We'll try.
how they made their money, how much money they have, and why it's pointless that they're holding this shit up as much as they are. Starting with the Atlanta Braves, they are owned by Liberty Media. That is a mass media company with ownership stakes in the Braves, in SiriusXM, and in Formula One. Their total assets are valued at $44 billion, and the Braves are valued at $1.9 billion.
Give Freddie Freeman money.
But we weren't having dialogue. Give me the next team.
Well, they got to give Freddie Freeman money.
Correct.
The Toronto Blue Jays are owned by Rogers Communications. Their chairman, Edward Rogers, is worth $11.5 billion. And they bought the team for $165 million in 2000. And now it's currently valued at $1.625 billion. And Edward Rogers is the chairman of Rogers Communications and Rogers Bank and the director of the Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. He got a lot of his money when he launched the wireless data at Rogers Wireless and also helped launch BlackBerry. So, yeah, Rogers Communications in the great land of Canada is doing pretty well, pretty damn well.
Just fine. Steve Cohen owns the Mets. Hedge fund
manager. He's rich.
Founder of Point72 Asset Management. He also buys expensive art. His net worth is estimated by Bloomberg at $11.8 billion. I've seen the number creep up to 16, but I trust Bloomberg. Cohen's got the money. He's obviously burning that money.
With the market, he might have more than that by the time we come out with this episode. So the Rays are owned by Stuart Sternberg, who's worth a cool $800 million. He's not as wealthy as the other ones, but $800 million is still pretty good. And he bought the Rays for $200 million in 2004, but the current evaluation of the Tampa Bay Rays is $1.05 billion. You may think down in the Trop, they're not worth much, still worth a cool bill. So Sternberg, he began on the Wall Street trading equity options, hired by an investment group at Kellogg's before moving to Goldman Sachs and then just retired. Just an enormous banker who makes money like nobody's business.
Yeah, Phillies are owned by John Middleton. Old money there. He's the heir to the Philly tobacco and cigar throne. Sold his family's company in 2007 for $2.9 billion in cash. His net worth is currently $3.4 billion, $330 million of which are going to Bryce Harper at the moment.
What about the Boston Red Sox owned by John Henry, who's worth $2.6 billion? He bought the Red Sox for $280 million back in 2002. What are they worth now? $3.3 billion. Funny enough, he started trading corn and soybean futures in his early 20s. Then he founded John W. Henry and Company, and now owns the largest commodity brokerage firm in the United States of America. He's doing pretty well.
So corn brokerage, or what, corn futures, is that
Trading
right?
Corn and soybean futures. I assume it's companies that deal in the manufacturing of corn and soybean, and he was betting on them to do pretty well. And now everything we eat has corn fructose, syrup in it. Yeah. So And then every vegetarian alternative is made with soy. Yeah. So everything we eat has John Henry written out all over it.
Yeah, 100%. That's like, how do we take something that's hunter-gatherer and make it not hunter-gatherer? I think that's...
And then just boil it down to a syrup and just inject it in Americans for 5 times the price.
Yeah. Bruce
and then Sherman, he buys the Red Sox.
Bruce Sherman is a broke boy. He's worth just $550 million. That peasant.
Loser.
He's the co-founder of the wealth management firm Private Capital Management, or PCM. Again, net worth estimated around $550 million. But he is the owner of the yacht Majestic, which is worth $70 million. And what do you think the annual upkeep for Majestic is? How much do you think that costs?
I'm going to guess $30 million a year.
No, God, no. $4 million a year.
Oh, I thought it was going to be nuts.
Well, it is. $4 million.
Well, yeah, that is nuts. $4 million a year? I don't know. The way you were describing it, I thought it was the biggest yacht ever.
He bought it for $70 million. Think about it. It's like a
What do you need a
floating mansion.
$70 million boat? What if you were like, oh, I'll just spend $30 million on a boat? Is that enough?
I think like just $10,000 on a boat is fine.
Yeah. I mean, you don't even need a boat anyway. Water's scary.
Yeah, I don't really.
All right.
I actually don't need a boat. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really need a boat. Orioles are owned by Peter Angelos, who's worth a cool $2 billion. He bought it back in 1993 for $173 million. And say what you want about the Orioles, but they're worth $1.4 billion. And Angelos was one of the biggest lawyers in Maryland, and he's won billions of dollars in judgments against, I guess, a bunch of different industries, most notably the tobacco industry. But he's getting up there in age a little bit. He's 90 years old, but he's doing fine.
We got 2 tobacco guys.
Are you surprised?
No, like I just thought big tobacco is like, a 1900s thing.
You want to own baseball teams.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
The Lerner family owns the Washington Nationals. Mark is the acting principal owner of the Nationals. That is Ted Lerner's son. Ted and family, real estate titans and investors in the DC area. They develop real estate. In 2019, Ted Lerner, the father, had a net worth of $5.3 billion, and they can't pay Juan freaking Soto.
He's expensive, man.
Yeah, but you have $5 billion.
Yeah, God, I hate them. All right. The New York Yankees, they're owned by Hal Steinbrenner, formerly George Steinbrenner, and the family is worth a cool $3.8 billion. Fans of other teams besides the Yankees may not know that they bought this Yankees team for $10 million back in 1973. And they're now worth the second most of any franchise in the world, including soccer, at $5 billion, right behind the Dallas Cowboys. So it's Hal and Hank, but Hank unfortunately passed away on April 14th of last year. They got it in shipbuilding and a bunch of other companies that do millions and millions of dollars in sales. And unfortunately, also George Steinbrenner passed away in 2010. But Hal's still running the show with a crap load of money. And granted, the Yankees spend more than anybody else. But the fact that, he's made about 4.99. How much money has he made from 10 million to 5 billion?
10 million to 5 billion is, something like that.
9 billion.
Yeah, I think so.
Not
like
bad.
499 or something.
Not bad.
Yeah, talk about ROI, return on investment.
Also, the thing about the Yankees, too, is they make so much freaking money overseas just from apparel. Like the Yankee hat is a brand, and it represents the United States of America overseas. Like when I was studying abroad in Italy, and we were going to a bunch of different countries, we saw Yankee hats everywhere, and I was interested. I went up to a couple of people. I'm like, hey, do you know what that hat means? Like, I work for the New York Yankees. I'd just love to hear your kind of story. And nobody, not one of them, probably the 4 people I talked to, ever said anything about the Yankees. It was just USA.
Yeah. What did Jay-Z say? I made the Yankee hat more famous than the Yankee game.
Than a Yankee can or a Yankee game. I'm not sure.
I thought it was than the Yankee. I don't know, but he made something. Jay-Z embodies the Yankee hat vibe. So that's that. Moving on to the NL Central, you will do the AL Central. Tom Ricketts and the Ricketts family owns the Cubs. The dad, Joe, was one of the first movers in online stock trading. Joe founded what's known as TD Ameritrade now. The Ricketts family as a whole is valued at $5.3 billion as of 2020.
They're going to go get Correa? Or are they going to go to Italy on a trip?
Oh, God. I don't know. Maybe see a Yankee hat over in Italy.
Whatever's more relaxing. The Chicago White Sox are owned by Jerry Reinsdorf, worth $1.7 billion. He bought them for $20 million in 1981. White Sox are now worth $1.65 billion. So Reinsdorf, real estate, selling companies to American Express. He bought the Bulls for $16 million in 1985. The Bulls are now worth $3.2 billion. He's made a ton on the White Sox. He's just a straight money maker.
Yeah, well, he made his money much like the Steinbrenners. Like you make the money actually in the sport, which is Kind of cool.
Yeah,
Bob Castellini. Bob Castellini is actually the bottom of the barrel here. Broke as hell. He is worth $400 million. That peasant,
dude.
again, an heir to a produce wholesaler company founded by Grandpa Castellini. So Bob, it makes sense if the Reds don't want to spend much money. I get it.
Minnesota Twins are owned by Jim Pollard or the Pollard family, worth $3.8 billion. Someone with almost $4 billion owns the Minnesota Twins, and they bought them in 1984 for $44 million, now worth $1.3 billion. So Jim Pollard, he took over as the team CEO after his father, Carl, died back in 2009. And now what they do is they own more than 30 diversified Minnesota-based businesses that they got from their father, who was a self-made billionaire who launched a bunch of financial banking firms in the 1950s. They got old money and they got new money, and they just got plenty of it.
Just a reminder that these are the people that Rob Manfred works for.
Yeah.
And these are the people that are crying, woe is me, because they have to spend money.
It's
the
tough.
Brewers, it's well,
It's
it
hard,
shouldn't be
man.
tough.
I just think the funniest part about this is how the players are trying to de-incentivize. What was I going to say?
De-incentivize something.
Tanking. They de-incentivize tanking, and yet we can't have just some sort of floor.
I mean, the floor is tough, but I'd like the draft lottery to de-incentivize tanking. But I digress. The Brewers are owned by Mark Atanasio, who is the founder of Crescent Capital Group, which controls over $26 billion in assets at the moment per Yahoo Finance. Mark Atanasio himself is valued at $700 million.
You got some poor boys on your list. I got a bunch of rich dudes.
Yeah.
John Sherman owns the Royals, but he bought them in 2019, kind of recently, for $1 billion. But he's worth a cool $1.25 billion. But now the current evaluation of the Royals, $1.1 billion. So he made about $100 million in 2 years, or at least the Royals did. He is the founder and CEO of Energy LP and Energy Mainstream. They merged with other holdings, other huge companies, and now their net worth of that company is currently $9 billion.
You notice how everybody just wants to get right back into sports? Like they go do boring shit, make a ton of money, and then they hop back right into sports.
And then they complain that the sports team is not making as much money as their private equity firm that makes 500% every day.
Yeah, whatever. The Cardinals are owned by William DeWitt, Bill DeWitt. He founded the investment firm Reynolds, DeWitt and Company. MLB Trade Rumors founded the value of the DeWitt family at $4 billion. By the way, the DeWitts also own a shit ton of Arby's franchises. So when you think we have the meats, we also have the dough.
We have the meats.
Yeah. Bump, bump.
Do you like Arby's?
No.
I've only been
had
once.
Arby's. I haven't had it since I was like 9.
I had it once and I think I liked it, but I never went back. I remember liking it.
Come out to the Midwest. We've got enough Arby's.
No, I'm good. Tigers. I'm just kidding. I love the Midwest, but that's more of a, I don't want to go to another Arby's.
Yeah. Quick pause here. Quick pause before you get to the Tigers. You hear how quickly he shot down coming to visit his friend and co-host Jack in the Midwest?
I shot down going to Arby's again. That's what I shot down. I want to make that clear for the record.
Okay.
The Tigers are owned by Ilitch Holdings, worth $3.8 billion. They bought it in 1992. They bought the Tigers for $82 million. And now the current evaluation is $1.25 billion. So Mike and Marion Ilitch, guess who they founded? Little Caesars Pizza back in 1959. But Mike unfortunately passed away in 2017, but his wife still owns the chain, which generates $4 billion in sales. And guess what? The family also owns the Red Wings. So that's pretty cool too.
You ever had Little Caesars?
Yes. Also not bad.
Is it not bad? I don't think I've ever had Little Caesars, actually.
I don't think it's that bad. I mean, it's not good. It's not bad.
Yeah, the commercials are great.
I would say it's... Have you ever had Pizza Hut?
Yeah.
Step below.
Step below?
Yeah.
Are Domino's and Papa John's better than Pizza Hut?
Papa John's, I think, is the worst.
I disagree with you. I think Papa John's is fine.
The dough is so bad. It's so like, ugh.
Listen. I'm all for supporting your mom and pop pizza joints, and do that
Yeah,
instead.
actually, though, yeah, never go to those, especially in New York City. I'm never going to those.
Also, Joe's Pizza, gas in New York.
Joe's, Prince Street, John's and Bleecker. Sauce Pizza is another one that I've been going to lately that I think is actually better than all of them.
Okay.
There's a lot of good pizza places in New York City. And
Okay.
as you can hear the siren as I'm talking about pizza places in New York City, it's very fun.
Yeah. I am team Lou Malnati's, Giordano's, and Pequod's. Pequod's is the goat of deep dish pizza in Chicago.
When I was in Chicago, deep dish was freaking awesome.
Yeah,
I was
and
a
like,
big fan.
it's not fair to compare New York and deep dish pizza because deep
Completely
dish
different.
it's a bready lasagna. Like, it's not really a pizza. It's more of like a pasta dish, if we're being honest.
It's a different food.
It's a different food, but like, if I had to pick one, deep dish or New York pizza, as a Chicagoan, I have to pick deep dish. But Primanti Bros is the spot in Pittsburgh, and Bob Nutting owns the Pittsburgh Pirates. He's got a funny last name. He is also the president and CEO of Ogden Newspapers. Oh no, he is the fourth generation president and CEO of Ogden Newspapers. Family money is just this common trend here. The Nutting family also owns several ski resorts in Pennsylvania. Bob Nutting has a net worth of $1.1 billion.
Good for the Nuttings. Well, the Guardians are owned by the Dolan family, who are worth $4.6 billion.
And they don't spend money.
And they don't spend money. They bought the Guardians for $323 million back in 2000. Guess what it's worth now? $1.15 billion. So the head of the family, Charles Dolan, he was a television pioneer who founded Cablevision on Long Island. But he sold that company in 2016. Guess how much, Jack?
A lot.
17.7 billion.
Yeah.
Imagine selling a freaking company for $18 billion.
Just give it like 2 more years.
You make $1 billion a year for the next 18 years.
Correct.
That's
how
how that
take
math
it all
works.
at once and buy so many Xboxes.
No, buy a team and then don't spend.
Bro, that was my favorite thing as like a 12-year-old. Like, I hear just a ludicrous amount of money, like somebody signs for $10 million. Like, think about how many Xboxes you could buy with that. Like, one for every
room. How many Chipotle burritos? Like, how many added times you can ask for guac? Like a trillion.
Yeah, the easier division there is when somebody signs like a $400 million deal. You just think about how many things they could buy at the dollar store. And the answer is 400 million different things.
Did you hear something about the dollar store, though? I think they're raising prices.
That's bullshit.
I think it's true. Did you check out the Neuralink thing after we...
Oh, no. I got to do that. I have
to check out Neuralink.
Neuralink. Elon Musk Neuralink. Got it. Let's move on to the West. Starting in the NL West, the Dodgers are owned by Guggenheim Baseball Management, who are led by Mark Walter, who is the CEO of Guggenheim Partners, which is a privately held global financial services firm. Mark Walter is valued at $4.4 billion. They also have other people. Stan Kasten is another investor. Magic Johnson, a notable investor. They bought the team in 2012 for $2.15 billion. And the Dodgers are not afraid to spend their money.
They aren't. Guggenheim. I like Guggenheim.
Good museum.
It just sounds like money, doesn't it?
It sounds like an underbite in a British accent.
It does, sort of. The Angels are owned by Arturo Moreno, worth $3.6 billion. He's the owner of the Angels, which he bought in 2003 for $184 billion. They're now worth $2 billion. His initial fortune came from billboard advertising company Outdoor Systems, which he sold to Infinity Broadcasting in 1999. In 1999, for $8.7 billion. 1999, that was worth $9 billion.
Who gives a shit with billboards?
Billions,
billboards were king in the 2000s.
Yeah, 1999, the billboard bubble.
Yeah, they love
Billboards are like Ethereum or like NFTs, but
the billboard boon. Yeah. The Padres are owned by Ron Fowler, who is the chairman and CEO of Liquid Investments, which is a beer distributorship that dealt out Miller, Coors, Heineken, among others. He's worth $500 million. Also, a fun fact, which I didn't know, Ray Kroc, who is the founder of McDonald's, was the owner of the Padres for 10 years in the 70s and 80s before selling the team. Had no clue.
Interesting.
Mhm.
Astros are owned by Jim Crane, worth $1.4 billion. And Crane led an investment group to buy the Astros for $615 million back in 2011. And they also bought that minority stake in the regional sports network for the Houston Astros, and their current evaluation is $1.85 billion. How'd Crane make his money? Pocketed about $300 million when he sold to his freight logistics firm, Eagle Global Logistics, to Apollo Global Management in 2007. And then he launched another logistics business, Crane Worldwide, in 2008. Their annual revenue is $900 million.
Jesus. We can't even explain this stuff. This is why we stick to baseball here.
I know. Just like, what are all these holdings and firms? And they're all worth $1 billion. What are they holding?
Big words. I can hold stuff. If you want me to hold stuff for you.
I got hands. Look at these hands.
You know what? I've got pockets too. I can wear a hoodie with pockets. You know what? I'd go back to cargo pants if you give me $1 billion worth of stuff to hold. Charles Johnson is the principal owner of the San Francisco Giants. He is the son of Rupert Johnson, who founded Franklin Templeton Investments. Charles Johnson is super hands-off. You wouldn't know that he was the owner of the Giants without doing, some relatively deep digging. But his $5.8 billion net worth is pretty solid to work with. I guess it makes sense, right? If you live in the Bay Area.
He's probably been a very good owner.
Yeah.
But he's holding all of our money. But he's holding all of it near and dear to his heart. Have I talked about the Athletics yet? Because John Fisher owns them. $2.6 billion John Fisher is worth. And he bought them back in 2005 for $180 million. And you might think, Moneyball, no way the Athletics are worth that much. Oh, they are. $1.1 billion. Guess where John Fisher is from? He's the youngest of the Gap. He's the youngest son of the Gap founders. You know Gap, where we're going to get all those cargo pants. Yeah. He's also the founding partner of this investment firm called Sandstone Partners, and he sits on the board of Silicon School Funds. He is a moneymaker, but he doesn't want to spend it on the A's because that would be crazy for him to spend it on his own team. Are you kidding me?
You say he's a moneymaker. You said that a billionaire is a moneymaker.
Yeah, but he just feels like a moneymaker.
Yeah, correct.
These guys,
Kendrick. Yeah, you go.
I was going to say all these guys are, but I don't know. Right. Fisher seems fishy.
I see what you did there. Ken Kendrick owns the Arizona Diamondbacks. Kendrick founded DataTel, which was a software development company, which is now defunct. His net worth is estimated at 600 million big ones.
God, so many poor dudes. Because John Stanton, the owner of the Mariners, is worth $1.1 billion, and he bought it for $1.2 billion in 2016, but it has increased $400 million since then and is now worth $1.6 billion. He's the chairman of Trilogy International Partners. They specialize in wireless investment and own a bunch of wireless telecommunications companies in New Zealand and Bolivia. Just, God, what is he doing? Why is he owning companies in New Zealand and Bolivia and owning the Mariners? He's got money all over the world.
Got money all over the world. Last one from me. Dick Monfort is the owner of the Colorado Rockies. He and his brother Charlie Monfort are the primary owners. Father Kenneth owned a meat packing and distributing company that was acquired by ConAgra Foods. LA Times estimates his net worth at $700 million. So before I hand it over to you, I propose that the Pirates and Rockies get together, form a mega team worth $1.8 billion, and you just combine their names to be Dick Nutting.
Just Dick Nutting.
Dick
and
Nutting.
Even at $1.8 billion, I'm looking through all the other teams. Like that would just make them kind of the White Sox. Like
Right.
Dick Nutting.
Dick
Who was
Monfort and Bob Nutting can make
who
Dick
was
Nutting.
our we had a pitcher, Dick Walkton, over there for the Cardinals.
Yeah,
Remember Dick Walkton?
Yeah, I do.
We have Dick Nutting and Dick Walkton now.
Yeah.
I like it. Who we got left? Rangers?
Yeah, Rangers.
All right. Co-chairmans, Ray C. Davis and Bob R. Simpson, but Davis is the big money maker, worth about $2 billion. So they bought the Texas Rangers back in 2010 for $593 million. It's gone up a lot. They're now worth $1.75 billion. Texas Rangers, $1.75 billion. So what did Davis do? He founded Energy Transfer, which is a pipeline company and a gas distributor in 1995. But he sold to ExxonMobil in 2010. Guess how much he sold the company for, Jack?
A lot. ExxonMobil in 2010, let's say 30 billion.
How about 41 billion?
God.
And then he just spent 600 million on the Rangers. Turned that into 1.75 billion in 10 years.
That works.
Makes sense why they signed Corey Seager and Marcus Semien. But will they get priced out of other free agents?
Like, I don't know. They should be willing to pay the luxury tax. Hey, if you didn't know who to blame for the holdup, now you know. And you have names to attach to the owners. You don't have to say, oh, the owners suck. Now you can say, Dick Monfort, you suck. Bob
Dick
Nutting,
you suck.
Dick Nutting, you suck. I mean, Mark Walter, like, I'm not going to blame him because he actually spends it. But, I mean, you look at who's the notorious, like, penny pinchers here? I mean, Atlanta, how about Liberty Media? You look at them and, like, what are you doing right now phasing out Freddie?
I mean, the Tigers, they own the Red Wings. They're worth $4 billion. They bought them for $82 million. They don't spend much.
Yeah. All right.
I mean,
so now
who else?
You know who to blame.
I mean, the Orioles guy's worth $2 billion. He's made about $1 billion off of just his team, just owning the team. And not to say that he makes $1 billion. That's just the worth of the franchise. Obviously, it's distributed through other. So he's not actually making, like, let's say they bought it for $100 billion or $100 million. It's now worth $1 billion. They didn't actually make $900 million, but they're still making tons and tons of money off their team when they're claiming that it's not a good investment, which is just horseshit.
Total horseshit. I agree. Any more thoughts on the owners before I give you my niche over-unders?
I'm happy that John Henry is, because he's a good owner. I'm happy that he's getting involved in the discussions, because it was Dick Monfort head in it, and like he gave the Cardinals $50 million to take Nolan Arenado. So
yeah,
I don't want. Actually, do we want him as a player's first guy? Like,
no.
Do you think if they bring in Arenado, just be like, come on, man? And he's like, all right, I think for you, Nolan.
Yeah, he might have a crush on Arenado. Like, that might be why he did that.
Let's sit at the table, Dick Monfort versus Nolan Arenado. They figure it out. They figure out the CBA.
Well, the players would win in about 7 minutes.
Exactly.
That would be good. All right. 3 niche over-unders before we wrap. I've got them. I'm going to throw them your way.
Let's do it.
First one. In the first week of the season, over under 3.5 times, we get the notification blast from MLB at bat that so-and-so is through 5 no-hit innings. We get that all the frickin' time. 3.5 through the first week. I'll keep tabs.
First week, under.
I think over.
You know why I think under?
Why?
I think there's going to be some offense early. I think they're going to implement the new juice ball. And I think there's going to be bombs away first week. Like I'm going out on a limb and really thinking that MLB is going to do that. Like I'm going to be betting some overs. You can hear that on Not Gambling Advice, of course, on our TikTok at Just Baseball Fans and on Twitter at Just BB Media. So I'm going to go under. I think the juice ball is coming in.
Okay, so I'm going to go over for almost the exact opposite reasoning. I think that what we've seen traditionally is early season pitching reigns supreme, and then the bats figure it out. Especially now Major League Baseball players have not had organized live at bats at their spring training complex. They won't have them for the next week and a half. So I think the hitters are going to be more behind the eight ball because pitchers have been throwing bullpens all season long. Have they seen all off season long? Have they seen, hitters, have they seen 98, 99 consistently? The answer is probably no, unless you go down to Eric Cressy's pad and do some of those sim games.
But they're all training though. I mean, come on. You think they're just not going to see 98 until opening day?
No. They're all training. I don't think they're seeing consistently good, like all-star level starting pitching right now in sim games until they get to spring training. I think it's going to take a ramp-up process.
We're going to track this one. This is a good bet. I like this one.
Absolutely. I'm just going to track, how about you track the number of games that go over the first week and we'll compare it to over under. I think more games go under than over.
Okay. All right. I think more games go over, but we'll see. That's a good one.
Okay. All right. Second one, over under 1.5 balls in play this year over 120 miles an hour. Last year, Giancarlo Stanton put the only ball in play over 120 at 122.2. Machado, Judge, and Ohtani each hit one at 119. There have been 4 balls hit total, 120 plus, since StatCast started tracking in 2015. 3 of the 4 have been hit by Giancarlo Stanton, the other one by Aaron Judge back in 2017. Over under 1.5 balls put in play that are hit over 120 miles an hour.
It's a great question. Similar to my last point, I think the ball is going to be a little bit juiced. I'm going to go over, but I'm just trying to think who would be that guy to get the over besides Giancarlo Stanton. Because you mentioned Aaron Judge, you mentioned Shohei Ohtani, you mentioned Manny Machado. Another guy, O'Neal Cruz of the Pittsburgh Pirates, hasn't really played much in the big leagues yet. We saw a short glimpse of him last year, and he was on those exit velo leaderboards. If we're talking the minors and the majors, he had more balls over, I think, 117 miles an hour than Shohei Ohtani. So he's another guy who could possibly get it 6'7" shortstop, something we've never seen before. Crazy raw power. Maybe he gets one. We got another guy who has a possibility. I'm going to go over, but I don't think it's more than 2. I think that's a good line.
So over under 1.5. I will also say over. I think Stanton gets one. And then I think one of either Pete Alonso or Vladdy Jr. hit one.
I think it's a good one. Those guys could also definitely get it.
Last one for me. Over under 2.5 pitchers ejected from a game this year for using a foreign substance. 2.5 is the line. Hector Santiago and Caleb Smith were the only 2 ejected last year.
I'd be surprised. I'm going to go under. I think they've either learned their lesson or learned ways to get around it. You know what I'm saying? I would be surprised if over 2.5 guys. I wouldn't be surprised if 1, maybe 2. But honestly, if you gave me 1.5, I still might go under. I think maybe 1. But I think they've either learned how to pitch without it or they've learned how to cheat and not get caught.
I'll say over. I'll say over 2.5 because I think a lot of guys just spent the entire offseason trying to concoct something that goes undetectable or is very discreet. And I mean, we've talked about it. Like, I don't think these guys are the biggest brainiacs in the world.
No, you know what I think's going to happen? No, because they're smarter than you might think they are. And I think that they will figure something out. MLB will figure it out about midseason, then start an additional crackdown, and then they'll hide it again. They'll start a process again.
We'll see. Well, I'm actually going to take over 2.5.
Okay. I like that. But we'll track that one too. This is a good one. That's all I got for you.
That's all I got for you.
That's all I got for you. I mean, what's up?
You know what? Okay. You plugged all the socials in the middle of the show. You plugged the pods. You plugged Boys of Spring for all your college baseball coverage. How about the call up? Not gambling advice. What else? If you haven't seen the Sonic Attack video that we put in the episode description from yesterday's episode, the Phillies GM episode, I would highly recommend going to watch that. It's about 30 minutes. It's a 60 minutes package, but I would highly recommend taking the time because it is mind-blowing and it freaks the shit out of me.
And with that, thank you, everybody.